It started with rain, then came divine intervention, then the stars pulled a Garth-sized surprise, and finally, there was Mignon Dupree. Welcome to the review of Week 2 of the Women's Big Bash League on this episode of The Outside View. So the Launceston leg of the WBBL was meant to begin with a blockbuster weekend, but instead, we got rain. All of the games on Saturday, October the 23rd, were washed out, but the tournament picked up pace after that. We had our share of big hits, of breathtaking deliveries, brilliant catches, and a couple of nail-biting finishes. So, let's dive straight into it, into our first segment, the top performer of the week. So week 2 was a good week for the Indians. Jemimah Rodrigues found some form, Smriti Mandhana scored a half-century, Harmanpreet Kaur is hitting sixes for fun, and Deepti Sharma has played a couple of contrasting innings. Unfortunately for you Indian fans, none of them have made it to the top performers of the week. Instead, I've gone with a couple of other overseas internationals, Sophie Devine and Kim Garth. So let's start with Devine because she's the one who kicked off the week in scintillating style against the Sydney Thunder. She scored a 60-ball 101. And it's interesting because everyone knows that Devine, coming into this tournament, has been struggling for some form, for some consistency. But it seems the WBBL brings something else out of her. And unsurprisingly, the Scorcher skipper didn't disappoint. After a couple of low scores, she went on to blast 100 off 60 balls, and as always, it was a masterclass in power hitting. Along the way, she shared a 173-run opening stand with Beth Mooney. But, topping Devine's performances, I think Irish international Kim Garth probably is the top performer of the week. Having moved from Ireland to pursue her dreams in Australia, Garth didn't feature in the previous season of the WBBL, but it seems now she's making up for lost time. She's been outstanding with the new ball, getting it to swing early, bowling fantastic lengths, and troubling the top-order batters. But most importantly, she's been getting some very early wickets for the Melbourne Stars. This week, she bowled an amazing opening spell of 3 overs, 3 maidens, and 3 wickets against the Sydney Thunder. It was a spell that derailed the Thunder's chase and allowed Melbourne Stars to pull off what was an unlikely victory. After that, she backed it up with so far what I think's been the delivery of the tournament to dismiss Ruth Johnston. She also scored a 44 not out in the same game. I guess if you left it to me, maybe it's bias, but I'd probably crown Kim Garth player of the tournament already. Team pacer and all that. So speaking of Garth, it takes us nicely into our next segment, the match of the week. So, while there were a few contenders for this week, you think of Brisbane Heat's victory over the Adelaide Strikers. It was a game that included a hat-trick from Darcy Brown and some big hitting from Georgia Vall. There was also the game between Hobart Hurricanes and Melbourne Stars. It was a clash that saw Richa Ghosh get the Hurricanes over the line in the final over. But instead, I've decided to crown the best match of the week, the game between the Melbourne Stars and the Sydney Thunder. Call it bias or whatever, but there's something about low-scoring games that really gets me. And I guess it's also the fact that this game saw 2 fantastic spells of fast bowling. The first, of course, came from Izzy Wong, who opened the bowling for Sydney Thunder and really challenged Melbourne Stars' opening batters. But of course, the Stars played her through and rode on a half-century from Elise Villani to score 108 for 7. In reply, Thunder's chase was derailed by Kim Garth, the 3-3-0-3, remember? She picked up 3 early wickets and Deepti Sharma was kind of left to hold the tail together. Didn't quite get over the line. Thunder fell short eventually by 12 runs. It probably doesn't sound like much fun, but like I said, team pacer. So on to the disappointments of the week, and it's hard to go past Sydney Thunder. I mean, I know they've been hit hard by the absence of Rachel Haynes, but when you look at the rest of the squad, they don't belong at the bottom of the points table. I mean, 5 games and still no wins under their belt. Well, I guess Smriti Mandhana has found some form now, so you'd hope they'd maybe climb their way up the table and find some momentum in Perth. From one Sydney team to the other, And the Sydney Sixers have also been handed some pretty disappointing news this week. Their all-rounder Aaron Burns will not be able to join them for the league stages this season because of border restrictions. The absence of Burns, of course, leaves a big hole in that lower middle order. It means they don't have as much power as they'd like. It also means that they don't have a golden arm to pick up wickets when opposition teams are building big partnerships. And finally, it also means that the best fielder in the competition is missing. I mean, with all the screamers that we've seen through the tournament, just imagine what Burns could have pulled off. And now, moving towards the end of our show, it's a good time to take a look at the points table. And there's been plenty of movement since last week. As you can see, Brisbane Heat have made their way up to the top with 7 points, and they're currently tied with the Melbourne Renegades, who've also found some form. There are 5 other teams that are tied on 5 points, with Sydney Thunder, the only team, like I mentioned, languishing at the bottom of the table with 1 point. That's thanks to a washout. Now, looking ahead, what's next? Well, there's some exciting news for the Strikers. Megan Schutt is back. And if this Australian summer is anything to go by, it's been the season of the in-swingers. So, opposition, beware. The teams now move to Perth for the next leg of the tournament. So, could we see maybe one of them break away from the rest of the pack? Can the Stars continue to spring some surprises? Will the Sydney teams finally find some form? And will Meg Lanning maybe get some runs under her belt? Let me know what you think in the comments below. So I'll catch you next week with a review of all the action in the WBBL on this very show, The Outside View.